You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
Hey everybody, it's Brian Burns and welcome to this episode of the Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling podcast. Today we're going to be talking about what do we have to do about preparing for a sales call and how has this changed over time. Even in the last 3 to 5 years, it's changed dramatically because customers no longer want to answer a lot of situational questions and a lot of problem questions. They want to dig into exactly what we do and how we do it and how it fits into their problem. And we have to do the research to figure out their problem without bombarding them with the 20 questions anymore. We have to be able to dig in and figure it out based off of what the market is experiencing today. We still should ask a few situation problem questions, but we can't do what we used to do where it was like a good, half hour about talking about the problem. What we want to do is let them expose it based off of what other people have experienced. And I got Chad back on the line today. We're going to be going through this in detail. Also, you can check out the science behind this from both Nudge.ai that can show you the relationships and what that company cares about, to also the personas that you sell to, making sure you understand the social proof that you're going to need for them, as well as going to gong.io where you can understand exactly what a great sales call looks like compared to a mediocre sales call. How much talk time should you have? How do you hold yourself back from blabbering? And then how do you get the next meeting? What is the close for that call? What is the next step? We have to be the guide through this process. And this is what's critically missing in most great salespeople, is that you're expecting the other person to guide you through their buyer's journey. No, you have to guide them through their buying journey because they don't know where they're going. And if you want to figure this out, I got a free ebook on my site, b2brevenue.com. Just simply fill out the form, just type your email address in, submit. You get an email with the link to the book. Download the book from that link in a PDF format. And at the end of the podcast, I'll sum it up. Now let's get Chad on the line. Hey, Chad, welcome back. Let's talk about what makes a great sales call.
Oh, it's all luck.
It's all... it's all... Okay, we'll see you next time.
Yeah, and goodbye. Mic drop, out. I mean, I'm tongue in cheek. I mean, there's a little bit of that, right, depending on the rapport that you have. But there are elements that I think any sales rep should be attempting to invest in control, right, when they're doing a sales call. The first and foremost, and it doesn't matter if it's the very first call or you're 10 calls into a sales process. Preparation for that call, which includes 5 minutes of research. Since I talked to them last time, have their executives been arrested for data breaches? Might be something important to know, right? Or, what I'm saying, just maybe they showed up in the news, or some big industry change, or some big regulation came out that may affect your sales process, right? So always just doing a quick search. Make sure you're prepared, know who you're talking to and what's going on with that company. Is for me the very first most important step in ensuring that I have good sales calls.
Oh, by far. I mean, even if it's a phone call, checking out their LinkedIn profile, Googling their name, their company, seeing their company page on Navigator. Are they growing? Are they shrinking? Are they hiring? How fast is that department that I sell to growing or shrinking? Do I know anybody else there? What's the connections that I have there? What are they posting on their blog? All of this stuff. And I'm looking for hooks. I'm looking for conversational points about them so that, because I don't want to talk about me because they don't care about me. They care about, they care about themselves.
It's so good to hear somebody say that, right? Because we spend so much time telling reps, like, you need to understand this is not about you. Right? It's not about you. So you need to make it about them. And look, LinkedIn makes it so simple. I mean, especially if you've got Navigator, and just go to the company page. You hit the company page in regular LinkedIn, you hit the company page in Navigator, and you've got everything that you just listed, right? Everything's right there. You remember back in the day, you'd actually have to go pick up a newspaper?
Oh,
Or,
forget it.
you know.
Right. I remember people sending away for the annual report, and I'm like, oh, my God. You understand that that's a year old already. And, and when I hear people say, I read the 10K, it's like, shut up. You did not read the 10K. Their blog is going to tell you, if you just do Google News on the account, is going to tell you, all of these things that they care about, that they're talking about, that they're looking for, who they're hiring. Go to Glassdoor. What are people saying about them? All of this stuff is there, and very few people even spend the time on it.
Well, it doesn't take long. Literally, how long does it take you to read the LinkedIn page? Like a minute?
A minute.
A minute. And then if they're a public company, I've started, and these sources change all the time. So audience, pay attention. You got to kind of know what's happening out there and what sites are working and what aren't. But I've been using MarketBeat, and if it's a public company, you search it, and literally, here's what they delivered to the street last year or last quarter. Here's what the analysts are saying they want from them next quarter. Here, all of this stuff is right there. Yeah. And it takes in under 5 minutes, if you can't come up with a decent understanding of exactly where the account is and at least 2 or 3 questions to ask, we might want to reevaluate whether you should be doing B2B complex enterprise sales.
Right. And instead, what do people do? They go, oh, what features do you think they're going to care about most?
They don't give a crap about your features, guys. They want the outcomes.
They want the outcomes, and you got to talk about what they care about and who you have in common. And people don't understand. It's like they look at you as outside the tribe. Our job is to become part of the tribe. And guess what? The easiest way is to find a common tribal member, right? and you could use like Nudge for that. That's free. You can see the kind of relationship you have. It might be 1 degree or 2 degrees separated, but you find out somebody that you might know in common, where they used to work, all of that. How long have they been there? And then you can even be a little creepy and go on Facebook and see what they post on there, and you can kind of get a sense of who they are as a person, or Instagram, about what they share. And okay, now you're up to 5 minutes, but you'll get a sense of what the person is like. And guess what? Once you get them talking, and that's what that rapport stage, instead of like talking about the weather or trying to figure out if they're a sports fan, or, every sales rep's talked about what school they went to, or trying to talk about how are the Dodgers doing this year or whatever. But you kind of can get the fish on the wall. Remember the old fish on the wall stories when we were getting into sales. Now we know everything about them. Spokio, I don't know if you've ever used Spokio. I've used that as just damn scary. You can tell how they voted. You can see where they live, how much they paid for their house, their kids' names, their spouses' names, their parents' names. It is just...
Spokio?
Yeah, Spokio.com.
This is a new one. I got to look.
Oh,
Spokio.
Dude, it is like scary.
Search people. I'm going to search myself. This is going to scare the crap out of me right now.
And if you pay for it, they'll give addresses, and then you can go to Zillow and find out, when they bought their house, how much they paid for it, their voting history, and then you can go to other places and find out if, their criminal record, if any, their credit score. It's this is all without their permission.
Yeah, this is creepy as hell.
Right. And I'm not saying do it.
Yeah.
I'm just giving it as an example. But the company, you go to Crunchbase, you can see when they were last funded, the ownership, when did if there was a CEO change, and especially like if you're selling to a particular department, you can see when that change took place and where did that person go. If that person is out on their own business, it didn't end well. And you can kind of get a sense of, the turnover, and, in Glassdoor, if they get a 1-star rating, that these people are not, great to work with,
right.
As opposed to people like raving about them and, they grew 100% last year. They're in growth mode. So and people love to talk about their successes. And you can maybe find if they have a customer in common with you. All of these things are great ways to prepare. And I think the biggest mistake, other than not preparing, is not preparing for the meeting that comes after the meeting, right?
Right.
I just yell on my podcast. The biggest mistake you can do is give a proposal, right? Because once you've given that proposal to somebody who doesn't have authority to sign it and approve it, you have given up power. You have given, the keys to your house, and they can come in and just take what they want. I mean, because now they're not going to call you until that proposal expires, right? And it's like, you got to understand this give and take that we get during sales.
Well,
right?
that I think that we call it a give to get scorecard, right?
Yeah.
And we're not I think everybody does it. I've seen one at Barrows, and everybody has this type of concept. But at the end of the day, if you don't know what you need from the customer in order to control effectively your sales cycle, and you don't know what you control that the customer may want from you, and keep that somehow documented or just be aware of it in detail, then you end up in a situation where it's very easy for the buyer to treat you as a vendor, not as a partner, right? Because you have value, you bring value, you have a whole. They want a case study, great. I'd be happy to provide that case study if we could do X, Y, and Z. Let's bring your boss to the next call. Or, you got to be able to ask for those things and understand that parity. Maintaining that parity takes a lot of effort, but can be easily managed just by understanding where you need to go, what you need, what information you need in order to get where you want to go to close a deal and get them to, value realization, and what things they're going to want from you so you can know when to play those cards. I think people have a tendency to go, they asked for a proposal. Woohoo, I'm going to move this up in the forecast, right? Which is the worst freaking thing you can do. Be a little bit more, be a bit more reserved.
Right, because you want to, you're going on dates, right? So there's a progression of dates. You don't, on the first date, you don't take her to a 5-star restaurant, right? Because then what do you do on the second date? You're not going to take her to a happy hour, right? You may not be in the dating market that often, but you do coffee, then you do happy hour, then you do dinner, and then you might go someplace. There's a progression. And the same as with sales is if too many people, and I think managers are guilty of this, they want it to happen really fast. But that doesn't mean it's going to happen very fast.
Exactly.
Right. It's very different. They don't understand how companies buy. And this was the biggest mistake, or it took me a long time to figure this out. I had this medium-sized deal with AOL back when AOL was really big. And here I was talking to the CIO, who was a co-founder of AOL, and the deal wasn't that big. And, and he was like pounding us for a couple more points. And I was like, can you sign this? He goes, no, I can't sign this. And I go, it wasn't that big. If I told you, you'd laugh at how big it was. It wasn't that big. And I go, well, I might be able to get you another points if we were talking like you could get it to us that day. Like it would expire at 5 p.m. That's when I could get you the couple points. And he goes, well, I don't know if I can do, you're talking to a co-founder. And I go, it doesn't matter. Apparently it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Well, and that's just it. I mean, look, it's no secret. I mean, hell, I've been doing sales way too long. Maybe I'm just getting a little jaded, but it's no secret. Everybody has said the vast majority of sales processes or methodologies or training, even the training that we do, focuses on not how you sell, but how your customer buys. And it sounds so damn simple. And I guess because we do it day in and day out, I start to get a little, clippy with some of my responses, because you can say it and people go, yeah, no, I get it. But then they don't act on it. Like they still want to go, well, yeah, but they want this feature. They need this feature really, really bad. And I know they need it, so I'm going to focus on this. Well, it doesn't make a damn bit of difference if the person you're talking to loves that feature and they have no influence on the buying process, can't sign the contract. Hell, they can't even introduce you to procurement or legal. So what's going on here? Like, why would you start giving them all the information?
Yeah.
Understand how your customers buy and what their perception of value is, and be prepared that you're not going to get it all at once, right? So if you're preparing for this call, here's what I know today. Here's what I don't know and I need to find out. And I may not get it all in this meeting, but I'm planning for the next one as well.
And this is where the simple sale screws up the complex sale, right? Because all the books out there are about the simple sale. There's very few, if any, talking about how companies buy. And how many salespeople know what a purchase request is, right?
Yeah.
Do they understand administratively what has to happen? And if you ask the person you're talking to, I go, do you have access to a purchase request? And they go, what's that? You know you're talking to the wrong person, right? and let's face it, we've all worked for companies. I have never had purchase authority for anything. I had a corporate credit card. I had 5 people
that was
working.
Closely monitored.
Very closely monitored. People are like, that's an expensive lunch, Brian.
Yeah. Why is there $5,200 worth of services at some place called Club Tao in Las Vegas?
Yeah. What a banana box.
I have been asked that by a CFO. I have been asked that by a CFO. I'm just saying, I'm going to put it out there. We all make mistakes, kids. So that's how you get up. Make sure you have $5,200 in the bank to cover that.
Yep. No matter where you wake up.
Sorry, totally went off track on.
No, but it emphasizes a point that the people that you're talking to didn't go to how to evaluate and purchase product school. That class is not taught. CFOs do not like anyone buying anything, right? Because money is super easy, right? They're like, oh, hey, let's have a little seminar, everybody, on how to buy stuff for the company. It's like that seminar never takes place. It's like this black box that people don't understand. And I have been in a CEO, founder, president of the company on the last day of the quarter at 6:30 on the last Friday with my CEO, and we have a $2.5 million PO in front of him to sign. The procurement person sitting next to him, and he goes, do you mind if I call my chairman of the board? And we're like, me and my CEO look at each other, and I'm like, thank God you're here. You would never believe this.
Well, think about it. Not only do sales reps not often know how companies buy, the vast majority of people inside the organization don't even know.
They don't.
Now, in that case, in that example, that CEO probably knew that for a $2.5 million contract, he wanted to CYA. He wanted to cover his rear, so he was going to call the chairman. But even if, I can think about the last 2 deals I did, and you ask the questions because we're trained to ask the questions. We know how to do this. Who else is involved? How do you guys buy? Is procurement legal? Is there a security review? You ask the questions. And here's what just absolutely floors me. You get one set of answers early in the sales process. And if you're constantly confirming, because I have a tendency to over confirm. So, hey, last time we talked, you told me this was what we were going to do. Is that still the case? Yes. Okay. Then all of a sudden, 3/4 of the way through the sales process. Well, you remember how I told you we didn't need a purchase order, procurement didn't need to be involved. Yeah, I was wrong.
Yeah.
I was wrong.
Right.
Shit. Right. That's, they don't even know. So being able to educate them, I think, is a critical component for salespeople as well. If you do your prep, right, and you go in and you recap what you know, always set the context, make sure nothing's changed. You've done your research, make sure there's no industry changes or regulations. GDPR hasn't hit yet, so everybody's not freaking out. And then you go in and you ask, hey, companies your size that we work with typically purchase in this way. What does yours look like? Yeah. You may not always get the right answers, but you should at least be asking the questions.
Right. And, do you know the person in procurement? Do they pull in legal? Are you, comfortable with a click-through license agreement? A lot of the SaaS products don't even have those anymore. But remember when you used to do, oh, my God.
Well, and with GDPR, I've been getting emails from everybody, like Pinterest. on up. Hey, we're changing our terms and conditions because of the GDPR stuff in EMEA, and now it's just click to accept. And it dawned on me the other day, since I run a business, I have to be GDPR compliant because I do work in EMEA. So, maybe I should read these. Maybe I should instead of just like, yeah, I get it. You're going to take my data and you're not supposedly not going to give it to anybody, but yeah, we all know
Right.
how that works. Maybe I should actually pay attention.
I don't know. I listened to the podcasts about it, and I'm like, this sounds like a lot of bark and no bite, because maybe that's me and my style, but
it's hard, right? It's hard. I mean, because it's not in the U.S. yet, right? And not to go off track, but it is something like for being prepared for a sales call is in today's world, literally in the next week and a half. Yeah. Is it something they're worried about? Because if they get fined, it's 10% of their previous year's revenue.
That's
a lot. I mean,
it certainly is a lot, but
how do they prove it and all this stuff? I mean, the documentation,
and then there's parity, and if you do it to us, you got to do it to everybody, and you just imagine. I mean, everybody's, mucking around with it. But it does bring up a good point, because I have worked for commercial companies and covered like the federal government and the intelligence community. And certainly around 9/11, it was like I got this enormous order through an intelligence agency. The contract was 50 pages. I sent it up. The CEO was involved. He walks it down to legal, and they redline it. And I'm like, guys, there's no redlining. There's signing or you don't sign. You want the money, you sign. He goes, well, Brian, it says drug-free workforce clause. And I go, so? And he goes, well, we don't enforce that. And it's like, well, we do now. And that's why I hear about these things all the time, and I've dealt with them. Right. Oh, you got to be able to support the sight impaired people. Does your software support that? And I go, yes. And it's like, I don't know. Right. When you deal with the government, you get these 50-page things, and the CEO just said, so he goes, I'll sign it. Right. He took his job, but it was a tremendous amount of money, and nothing's ever going to happen, and sometimes. And can I be prepared for this? Can I ask this intelligence? Can you give us a boilerplate of your contract? And it's like, no, and they're not going to change it. And they'll say, well, we'll go with somebody else, and I've gotten, and if you have a manager who likes to play lawyer, forget about it. I remember arguing about, which countries they can sell their product into, arguing for hours about Iran and Iraq. And it's like, well, we never know. We might want to sell it into Iraq. And I'm like, yeah, sure you will. It's like, right? Literally, people will spend time on this stuff. And that's the problem is like, because the lawyers get paid by the hour, and they're incentivized to drag it out.
Well, and go back to those managers I always love the manager that thought they were lawyers.
Yes.
Right. So basically, if you're getting ready for a sales call and you, all right, let's say that the person you're talking to, the company you're talking to, they know and have told you, here's how we buy. And you, let's just pretend, rainbows and unicorns, that you actually understand their buying process. And then you forget that you have a selling process internally. And I don't mean the steps to sell, but the individuals you have to go through. So yeah, okay, they're going to send you an SLA. They're going to send you a contract. You're then supposedly going to send it to legal internally, but your manager wants to see it first. Oh, yeah. That actually counts as another step, because your manager is going to say, hey, before we send this to legal and incur those costs, I know these are going to be issues, so send this back. And then once they've figured out those things, then we'll send it off to legal. So now you just added two more steps. So you're not aware of every side of the equation and where each call fits. You're doing yourself a disservice and potentially elongating your sales cycle.
Yeah, and the internal system can be difficult, because you do get people who have certain things, and they get power by slowing it down. the sales prevention team. And I had a case, a $500,000 deal. I get it. Me and my manager are, doing high fives over the phone when it comes in, blowing away the number for the quarter. And then he calls me back in a half hour. He goes, Brian, we can't book it. And he goes, why? He goes, their credit is terrible. And I go, no. These people are very well funded. And then somebody from credit gets on the phone, with the Boston accent. This is a non-starter here, Burns. Right? And I go, what are you talking about? And he had the wrong company. He typed in the wrong company name. And I'm like, could you type in the right company name, please, so we can book this order? Sorry, Burns.
Yeah.
And it was like,
sorry about that. Yep.
And you're yeah.
You have to be able to roll. Was it? I forget who it was. Maybe it was Tyson or Muhammad Ali. Everybody has a strategy till they get punched in the face, right? So when you go into a sales call, and let's say you've done your prep, and you start the call and you recap, right? These are things you start to ask your questions. One of the things that I often see sales reps fail with is forgetting to recognize the things they don't know.
Yeah.
So they'll think that they've got, hey, I asked a buying question and I got, kind of an answer. Yeah, legal and procurement are involved, but we didn't ask when, how, what does that look like, right? Or we didn't ask, is there somebody else that's going to be impacted by this decision that might show up late in the sales process that we should talk to earlier, right? So really mapping the unknowns. We have a tendency, I think sales reps have a tendency to get on a sales call. They want to go from point A to point B based on the way they've been taught to sell or their sales process. But they don't recognize that inside of that, there are a great deal of unknowns that have to be uncovered. And spending the time on a sales call, even if it's just 1 or 2 questions per call, to really feel out some of those unknown areas and do it with purpose and diligently is something that I think is part of it. Always, in my experience, always leads to great conversations with the customers. Because sometimes you'll be asking questions like, I didn't think about that. I'm not 100%. Let's talk about it. Hadn't crossed my mind that would be an issue, right?
Well, right. And I always ask the question, like finding that end point that they want to be, because like at the beginning of the year, I go, well, okay, it's December 31st, 2018. Where do you want to be? How much revenue do you want? How many customers do you want? Which customers do you want? And then work backwards, because then you're working from their outcome, as opposed to what the product does and the bits and the bytes and all the little tiny pieces.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. And when I use that question, it gets people thinking ahead and then figuring out that, like, I'm sure you set a goal for yourself and for income or for top line. And, I have mine written down on my calendar there. And that year looks like a long time. But, here we are.
It's not. It's totally not. But that's the whole point. People don't engage with salespeople, just to get the product, right? They have something there's some perception of value that they have that they're going to measure. And if you focus on that, value realization, installation, whatever you want to call it, the first, testing of the metrics, assessment, whatever that stage is, if you focus on that, then closing just becomes a natural step in the progression to get there, rather than this thing that requires books upon books upon books to be written about it.
Right. I mean, think of yourself as a Sherpa or the doorman at a great hotel. They open the door of the Uber, they take your bags, they walk you up to the front desk, they let you check in, they take the key to the room, they bring you up to the room, they open the door, they put the bags there, they show you the thermostat like you can't figure it out with the remote for the TV. They go, interested in the gym? It's on the second floor, just go take a left on the elevator. May I make a recommendation for dinner? Yeah. Is there a steak place, seafood place, or vegetarian place? Oh, yeah, right around the corner. I'd recommend this. That's what our job is. Our job is to Sherpa them through this process. Because, yes, we've all checked into a hotel. We can all figure out where the elevator is and where the gym is. But it is a little bit of help when somebody shows you when somebody takes the guesswork out of it and you don't walk into a meeting room by accident. It's the gym, right?
You know the elevator's there somewhere. You know there's a pool. You know there's a meeting room. We know it's there. So do me a favor. Just point me down the hall so I don't waste my time.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to waste yours because I'm going to come back and be like, really? You saw me walking that way. Did you think I was taking my bags to the pool? I mean, come on.
Right. The elevator's to that floor run to the left. Yours run to the right. You know, and it's like, and you need your key to get into the gym, and the gym is, open 24 hours a day, and all of these little things. And that, if you don't know how to guide your customer through the buying process, that you're missing the biggest part of sales. The pitching, and I think too many people, that's where the simple sale is. The simple sale is on that single call to a single person getting a single action taken place. The complex sale is just the opposite. It's multiple people, multiple calls, multiple actions getting taken place, and you guiding them. These things all seem obvious, but how many of us really do it? How many of us really make that investment in that call to do the prep before and the review afterwards? This is incredibly critical because we put so much energy into getting this and we throw it away sometimes just because we just overlook it, and we assume that since we've done it a million times before, we know how to do it, and we're going to just do it naturally, and it's going to be intuitive. And sometimes it is, let's face it, but a lot of times we just miss the one little golden piece, or we get thrown off of our game, or something pops up that we just are not aware of and don't know how to manage, and we just overlook it. Now, I also want to make you aware of that the courses are both going up in price at the end of May. So if you're looking to really improve your game this year in 2018, it's time to sign up. I mean, we're almost halfway through the year, and how's it going? Are you going to crush your number in 2018, or is it just going to be another mediocre year for you? It's up to you. Your game has to get better, and the only way to get better is to really find a way of practicing and building a structure to it. It is not a silver bullet. There's no one skill that's going to get it. No matter how charming and smart you are and hardworking you are, unless you're really practicing your game of sales, you're just going to fail. And you're just not going to succeed because quotas are getting higher. Pressure is increasing. Customers are becoming more elusive and hard to get a hold of. We have to build up these skills and our network using technology and outsourcing and just having a smarter system to keep the game going, to keep our deals moving forward. So check them out at b2brevenue.com. Look under training. If you're serious about it and you're just not sure if it's the right match for you, I say, first of all, does the podcast make sense? Are the topics that I'm covering here sound familiar? Do they align with your type of sale? They don't align with everyone's type of sale. I get that. If you're in the simple sale, it's not a good match for you. If you're selling to mom and pops, it might not be a great match for you. But if you're selling business to business, it will help you. You know, your people have to be visible. They have to be, at least at the turn of the century online to help you, or just to be able to be a complex sale, large dollar amounts, needing to keep the ball moving down the court. So just check them out. If you want, you can get a time on my schedule. I have a calendar link at B2B Revenue under the training. It's the second link. The first link is to the courses. There's a couple of free ones there. One on LinkedIn. Make sure your LinkedIn profile looks professional. And number 2 is on Nudge. The password is the word Nudge, the coupon code. So you can get it for free. It's $2.50 if you don't have the coupon code. So the coupon code is Nudge. Just type in that word. Make sure it zeroes out, and you can get in and take that. That'll give you a sense of what people care about, how you're connected, how to build up your network organically. That's it. I really appreciate everybody who's listening to the podcast. If you liked my book for free, The Maverick Selling Method, simply take a little screenshot of the podcast with the logo, share it on LinkedIn, and tag me, Brian Burns, and 2 salespeople, and I'll see it. I'll like and comment on it and send you the book. Make sure we're connected on LinkedIn so I can send you an in-mail. And I'll just send it right off to you in PDF formats, the whole book, no abbreviation. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.